Good evening, and welcome to the Center for Nonprofit Excellence Mayoral Forum. My name is Ashley Parrot, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors for CNPE. It is great to see so many faces and participation tonight. Your presence here this evening speaks volumes about how important nonprofits are to Louisville and our surrounding communities. And I want to thank our two candidates and their staff for working with us to make this event possible tonight. We appreciate that they are showing up for nonprofits. I also want to thank CNPE staff for all of their work and our moderators, who I will introduce shortly. But first, I want to ask you a couple questions. Did you know that more than 38,000 people are employed by nonprofits in the greater Louisville region? That nonprofits are the fourth largest employer in Jefferson County, and we rank as the third largest employer in the entire state. In addition, nonprofits have a $4 billion impact on our local economy. That is huge. And we haven't even started talking about the social impact nonprofits make every day in the lives of individuals and families through providing support and services in the areas of public safety, violence prevention, health and human services, housing and homelessness, child welfare, education, art in our parks, job training, food security, racial justice, environmental protection, animal safety, and just so many more areas. Those are just a few. And this is why we're gathered here this evening to make sure that we work with our future mayor to help him and his administration understand how nonprofits can play an even greater role in solving community problems. Now, when it comes to making decisions, about how to address challenges, develop plans and programs, make funding decisions, nonprofits need to be around and heard at the decision-making table. That's what tonight is all about. But before we get started, we have one more small step that we'd like to take. So CNPE is committed to being an anti-racist organization. We will take action to end racial inequity in all facets of our work, including board governance, membership, consulting, operations, communications, programs, and training. And to that end, we would like to make sure we are reaching voices from every corner of our nonprofit social impact sector, gaining insight from their wisdom and understanding their needs along the way. In a moment, we'll put up a quick poll to help CNPE better assess all of the folks that we have with us here today. And I want to say that this poll that's put up is going to be personally unidentifiable, so you won't have, it'll be completely anonymous. So go ahead and fill that out, and we'll give you about 30 to 40 seconds to fill that out. And when that's complete, we'll move forward. Okay, we'll give you a couple more seconds. All right. Thank you, Murr, for posting that for us. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Stephen George, President of Louisville Public Media, and also our fellow CNPE board member, as well as Rachel Platt, Director of Community Engagement for the Frazier History Museum, who will be moderating our program tonight. Thank you both for being with us, and I will be sure to assist you in monitoring any of the discussion that takes place in the chat. So with that, Stephen and Rachel, let's begin.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and thanks to all of you joining us tonight, and to our two mayoral candidates, Republican Bill Deeruff and Democrat Craig Greenberg. We know you've had many debates, but we appreciate you taking the time to address the needs of nonprofits. As Ashley said, nonprofits are the fourth largest employer here in our city and the third largest in our state. Now, all of these questions being asked tonight, they came from local nonprofits. A couple of housekeeping notes. Please make sure you're on mute. We've all used Zoom for way too long now, so please make sure you're muted. Also, feel free to be active in the chat, but please be kind to each other. Try not to dominate the conversation. We aren't planning to take questions from the chat, but we do hope for a spirited dialogue. Rachel?
All right, Stephen, thank you. And before we get to our questions, we have a few guidelines that we want to explain the format to our candidates, a few ground rules, if you will. Opening statements will be 2 minutes each. The closing statement will be just a minute. Each question we ask, you're going to have 90 seconds to respond. Merv is going to be putting up a yellow dot on the screen, letting you know that you have 20 seconds remaining. When the red dot comes up, it means your time is up and you need to wrap up immediately. Now, if Stephen and I feel the need to ask a follow-up question, we will do that. And then you'll have 30 seconds to answer that question, and you'll get a red dot only, just meaning your time is up and it's time to wrap up. Stephen?
We'll rotate the order. We ask questions of our two candidates. So let's start with opening statements. And we want to set those up just a little bit. You've been campaigning for months now. You've been together in numerous debates. I think you've been together almost every day. You've heard from the citizens. You've heard what each other has to say. What is it that makes you think you're the best person to lead Louisville forward? Again, you have 2 minutes to answer. And Bill Deeriff, we're going to start with you.
So to let you know where I come from, I am the mayor of the city of Jeffersontown and have a proven track record with working with nonprofits. Actually, we look back today to see how many nonprofits we work with, and there's 29 different ones. And I see Paula on there with USA Cares, and they're one of the ones we work with also. But as a person that has worked with nonprofits, one thing I realized carrying this downtown Louisville, it's not the government that should be doing this. We should facilitate it, but walk away and let you all be the professionals, because you understand how to handle drug addiction, whether it's VOA or one of the other ones, or whether that's the homeless. You all understand how to do this. Government should do the way we do in Jeffersontown with the Angel program and Reach. We reach out and help the people that are homeless, and they're not just one type. We understand the homeless is anywhere from the addiction to the behavioral, to the veteran, to the spouse abuse, to the people that need help right away. And so we help those people and we bring them to the nonprofits. And the money should flow to you all from Metro. I understand that the funding to you all has been cut like 56%. That's ludicrous, because for every dollar that we give you, you get $2 back. The volunteerism that you all have is something that we don't have in government, and the expertise is something that we don't see. So to take $100 and for us in Metro to spend 90 and give you 10, to me is ludicrous. As an accountant, I understand how to take the $100 and we spend $10 and give you the $90, which will make you even more whole, because our situation right now is dire. We have more and more people homeless. We have more and more people addicted. We have more and more people needing jobs. We have the arts program that even needs more and more coming out of the pandemic because of the fundraising. But all the nonprofits is very much limited during the pandemic. So coming out, it's going to be very much needed to where we both get corporations coming in to Louisville, filling the office spaces so that there is more funding for the nonprofits. And Metro has to know how to get there and how not. Oops, sorry, red dot, right. You know, it's been, I apologize. I'm just stopping just saying, sorry, Craig. But we are so used to being out in the public that we're back to Zoom, and it's just not natural to see the red dot up there. Sorry about that, Marv.
Thank you, Mr. Deeriff. Craig Greenberg, you have 2 minutes, same question.
Well, it's great to be with everyone, and I just want to thank CNPE and all of the organizations and people that are part of the amazing organization that you all are. And thank you for everything that you do for our community. And I hope as your next mayor of Louisville, we have the opportunity to work closely together, because to me, nonprofit organizations are a key part of the solution. I believe I have the relevant experience necessary to lead the city forward in a new direction, but more importantly, assemble teams of people in the administration, also out in the community with nonprofits, with the private sector, with neighborhood leaders, with members of the clergy, everyone who wants to be a part of the solution. Because I don't think we need any more studies. All of us on the call know what the challenges are. And if we work together using nonprofit organizations as the leading organizations to implement meaningful, transformative change, we truly will move Louisville in a new direction. I've put together public-private partnerships my entire career. I've served on the board of many nonprofit organizations, large and small, and have volunteered. And I have seen that transparent organizations are stronger organizations. Accountable organizations are stronger organizations that make for stronger cities and communities. And those are some of the things that I want to focus on. If you look at my top 3 areas of focus as mayor for the community, nonprofit organizations play a key role in all of those. First, public safety. We must reduce the amount of senseless gun violence in our community. And I believe that through a comprehensive approach where we're not just focusing on improving the police department to have the best community policing department in America, one that's trained, trusted, and transparent, we also need to work with nonprofit organizations to invest in the root causes of crime and poverty to support our kids. And we also need to work with organizations to crack down on illegal guns, something that I hope we have an opportunity to talk more about. So first is improving public safety. Second is addressing our affordable housing and our homeless crisis. There are so many wonderful and strong organizations in our town that do that. Oh, I see the red dot also. I had the same thing, Bill. And the third one is universal pre-K. Hopefully we have a chance to talk about all of that. I apologize for that as well.
Well, that's all right. We're even because you both did that. So we're all good. No foul. Let's get to nonprofits a little bit more that you both touched on. The first one really is about your personal involvement with nonprofits. What can you tell us about your personal experience with nonprofits, and are you connected to any right now? And we're going to start with Craig Greenberg, and you have 90 seconds to answer that question.
Sure. I've had amazing experiences participating as a volunteer in nonprofit organizations, in organizations large and small. As a younger adult, I was involved in the Jewish Community Center on their board of directors. I served on the board of directors of the Metro United Way. I chaired the March for Babies for the March of Dimes. I've been involved in special events for nonprofit organizations. I was on the board of the Kentucky Museum of Art and Crafts or Kentucky Museum of Arts and Design. But my most significant experience was on the board of trustees of the University of Louisville, where I was appointed by Governor Beshear, the first Governor Beshear, and really advocated for transparency and accountability in that organization. I fought against unnecessary tuition increases on students. I called for accountability for the highest levels of the previous administration to end excessive compensation and run a transparent organization. And through that process, I learned that, as I just mentioned, transparent organizations are stronger organizations. And now more than ever, that lesson needs to be in all of city government. That needs to be our culture for the mayor's office, for our police department, for every organization, wherever public funds go. We must be transparent, and we should expect as leaders to be held accountable. Lessons that I learned through my service in nonprofit organizations will guide me as hopefully your next mayor of Louisville.
Thank you so much, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. Deere, same question, your personal experience with nonprofits. Are you connected to any right now? And again, you also have 90 seconds to answer.
Thank you, Rachel. As a sitting mayor, we're involved in, as I said, 29 different nonprofits on a daily basis. And when we started, one of the processes, we started HERT, Heroin Emergency Response Team. And that is where we brought all the different nonprofits, the doctors, the nurses, the police, and everybody together to help with the drug addiction and look to the future of what we do. From that, we brought Narcan to our public works, our police, and our fire. But we also started the Angel program. And the Angel program works with many of the nonprofits because it's not only for the addicted now, we've turned it into reach. We've gone to the homelessness. So whether we're working with VOA for drug addiction, or we're working for the homeless, or we're working with USA because the veterans that are on the streets need help and they need shelter and they need to be healed from serving and protecting us. I am involved in many of those situations. But where I come from is a grandmother who started Kentucky Recovery Incorporated. And Kentucky Recovery Incorporated is for those men and women who have behavioral problems. And she started that over 50 years ago when she realized the situation was dire then, and it hasn't changed. It's actually increased. My grandfather started AA in Louisville. So I come from a service family that knows what it's like to help those. And we realize also from the Angel program that those that are addicted is not a one-time, one-day thing. It's a situation where we have to help them through a period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Deeriff and Mr. Greenberg. Let's turn our attention to the funding of nonprofits. So since merger, Metro funding for nonprofits has been cut by 56% when adjusted for inflation. This continual decline means fewer services for residents during a time when Metro government has also reduced services. Are you satisfied with this balance, or would you increase funding for nonprofits as mayor? Bill Deeriff, let's start with you. 90 seconds.
As I mentioned before, the problem we talk to different nonprofits, the one thing that I understand is Metro government is spending too much money on themselves. In two ways, they take the $100, as I said, spend 90 on themselves, and you all get 10. The other thing is I've heard from many of the nonprofits, large and small, is every time somebody comes up with an idea of how we're helping, Louisville tries to mimic it. So we have two people trying to do the same thing. But I also let you know a personal experience, and I may not want to say this because I may have a bunch of phone calls after this, but USA Cares needed help. And they needed funding to go forward with both their building and helping the vets in a large way because of the pandemic. I worked with them in Frankfurt, and we got $1 million set aside to help our vets in the future. So that the advantage of the position I have working around the state, working with Frankfurt and working with Metro is the efficiency of the dollars and be able to bring more dollars from Frankfurt down to help the nonprofits here.
Thank you, Mr. Deeriff. Craig Greenberg.
To answer your question, Stephen, no, I am not satisfied with where we are in the reduction in amount in the funding to nonprofits, and I would absolutely be presenting budgets that increase the amount of funding to nonprofits. There are really two key areas in which I want to work with nonprofits, I think, in an enhanced way compared to currently. First, nonprofits can and should be doing more. When government is looking to address a major challenge in our community, it does not always have to do it itself. It does not always have to create a new department or a new organization or hire new people when there in all likelihood is going to be an existing nonprofit, large or small or both, that already have infrastructure necessary to provide this service and address this challenge in our community. I expect to work collaboratively with those nonprofit organizations, align ourselves on the goal, and then hold those organizations accountable for meaningful results. I believe we'll see better results as a community if we work closer with nonprofit organizations in that way. And secondly, we need to have constant communication between the mayor's office, the entire city government, Metro Council, and the nonprofit community so that our interests are aligned, so that we're working together towards the same community goals, so that nonprofit organizations and foundations have input in what we're doing, so that we leverage public funds with private funds and donations, and that we can collaborate on solutions. The two areas where I'd like to work on this first are one, making universal pre-K a reality for all 3- and 4-year-olds, and two, ending senseless gun violence.
Thank you for that. I've got a follow up along these lines, and Craig, we'll start with you. And you actually kind of already alluded to this. I'm curious how both of you would integrate nonprofits and the sector as a whole into your leadership and decision making, and maybe just drill down a little more on what you were just saying. Craig.
So sure, let me give you an example on that. I believe in the city government administration, there should be an individual that is responsible to be a liaison with the philanthropic community, with the nonprofit community, but also that's focused on national philanthropy. We have amazing foundations in this community that are so generous. We have amazing philanthropists and a group of people in Louisville that contribute beyond their means in many cases, small dollar donors, large dollar donors, and everywhere in between. What I would like to focus on is how can we leverage other sources around the country? How can we reach out to the largest foundations in the world and ask them to invest with us in big solutions to put Louisville on the map for the right reason? Let's reach out to those foundations and make universal pre-K a reality. Ask them to help us invest in the infrastructure we need for a public-private partnership with the city government, with JCPS, with the private sector, with existing early childhood care providers, to have the infrastructure we need, to train the teachers that we need, and have the resources. So yes, eventually we as a community need to pay for that ourselves. But let's get some support from outside this country when Louisville's on the map for some of the wrong reasons to put us on the map for the right reasons. And I believe an individual within the mayor's administration can serve as that liaison to national philanthropy, to local philanthropy, as well as to the nonprofit organization. The same goes for gun violence. We need to work with organizations that are working particularly with our youth, to give our youth more hope and opportunity, enrichment opportunities, educational opportunities. And government cannot do this alone. We must work with nonprofit organizations and leaders, other neighborhood leaders, members of the clergy, law enforcement, medical professionals, mental health professionals, and we will be working collaboratively through my administration.
Thank you, Bill Diriff.
I think the thing starts when I win the election on November 8th, and we need you involved in the transition team, because you all need to help us show who should be the liaison on our team. For me to pick somebody, it's not right. It's always a collaborative effort of all you all looking to see who should be that representative. And it may not just be one representative, because nonprofits don't represent just one silo. There's the help of the addicted. There's the help of the arts program. There's the help of the homeless. So there's very different type of silos that we may need help from the nonprofit. So I would say, yes, there is definitely going to be a liaison from our office to the nonprofits, but it may not be a singular one. It may be multi ones. And that representative should be somebody that actually understands what the boots on the ground is, and understands all the different organizations that are helping, because we need to form a coalition so our community knows what we have out there. Right now, there's many people that are trying to help all people, but we're not doing it in a large number. So I would like to see the nonprofits form a coalition that we help with, but we don't run. Government should not be running the coalition, but should be the one that will help facilitate to get it started, whether it's the nonprofits to help the homeless of all the different people out there, or whether it's the housing problem, or whether it's the arts program, or whether it's simply just the people that need help, the schools. So as we look to the future, I get a red dot and have to stop.
All right, wanted to ask about something that I've heard alluded to already tonight, and that is gun violence in Louisville and public safety. And of course, that goes hand in hand. And my guess has been very top of mind with the voters that you've spoken with. Our question: how will you address gun violence, and what steps will you take to support that work? We're going to start with you, Bill Diriff. You have 90 seconds.
So the situation we have in Louisville is to where the violence has outraced what we are doing and the amount of police that we can have to help to it. So the first thing we have to do is be able to do community policing. Community policing is what, in order to do that, we have to have more police officers. We're over 500 short. I know people keep saying 300, but that doesn't include the officers that are out off duty in military, or whether they're sick or retiring. But we have to have the officers know the community, and the community work with the officers. The next thing we need to do is we have to set up a task force to where it's state, federal, and local, to get rid of the cartel and the gang leaders, because they are the ones that are leading our youth in the wrong direction. But there's also one situation that we have not mentioned many times, but I have said something over the last several weeks, and the Courier Journal finally start publicizing it, because we realize in my position right now is the domestic violence that is going on. That is increasing over top the amount of anything else that's going on. So we have to have the victims advocates out there to help the people on domestic violence. We have to have the people that will bring them to you all, so you all can show them how to get through the court system, but also how to get healed. And we don't talk about that violence that's out there. We so many times go to another direction, but we need to help the spouse that is being abused right now, because it's over the top wrong.
You stopped right there. Okay, I wasn't sure if
That's
you
a
had
red
another-
dot. I have to stop on the red dot. Now that I found
you are
out where
just
he
right
was,
with that red dot. You stopped mid-sentence. Okay, now I know what you're going to do there. All right, Craig Greenberg, same question about gun violence and how you would support the work to do that. 90 seconds for the same question.
This must be all of our top priority. There is no one who have stronger resolve than myself to work with everyone throughout the community to reduce the amount of senseless gun violence. We need to address all violence, but senseless gun violence in particular. Here's what I'll do on the first day of my administration. Right now, under Kentucky law, when guns are confiscated by LMPD, they are required to be turned over to the state, who in turn auctions them off. Far too often, those guns that have already been used in the commission of a crime find their way back onto the streets and are used to commit another crime. This is an absurd and dangerous law. On the first day of my administration, we will comply with this law, but we will only turn over the guns to Frankfurt after rendering the guns inoperable. Because any gun that's used to commit a crime should never be used to commit a crime again. Right now in Louisville, over 2,000 guns have already been confiscated this year. That is 2,000 guns that we can keep off the street under my policy. That might just be a small part of the solution, but we need to act with urgency, with small and large solutions to reduce the amount of senseless gun violence. We also, yes, we do need, and we can talk more about the police, we need to fully staff the police officers so that they can focus on community policing and work to prevent crime from happening. But we also need to work with nonprofit organizations on group violence intervention programs to provide youth with more opportunities and hope to succeed. So much of the gun violence is 15 to 24. I also hope we get a chance to talk about community centers as well, because that's a key part of the solution.
All right, thank you both. Stephen?
We're going to stick with LMPD and a two-part question. First, do you think there's a culture problem with Louisville Metro Police? And if you do, what will you do to change it? Craig Greenberg, 90 seconds.
To me, the key three elements of our police department should be: first, it should be the best trained police department in America. It should be the most trusted police department in America. And it should be the most transparent police department in America. I want to support the hardworking men and women of LMPD that are working hard every day to protect all of us, but we need to ensure that everyone is working with these same three cultural foundations of trust, transparency, and training. They all three are interactive as we train our police officers to ensure that they are better trained in de-escalation, that they're trained in racial justice and racial sensitivities, that they're also trained. I'd love to get folks that have social work backgrounds to be trained as LMPD officers as well, so that our police are well representative of our community, diversity in race, in gender, but also in experiences. And transparency is also critical. We must have a transparent city government. We must have a transparent police department. And so when things happen that we don't wish would not have happened, we need to be honest with the public about them in as close to real time as possible. When mistakes were made and things happen, we need to acknowledge that, talk about what we're going to do differently so that the community is served better. And together, as we do all of this, we will then rebuild that trust. We need to establish close relationships through community policing between our police officers and city leaders and neighbors across the whole city.
Thank you. Bill Deere, same question. Does LMPD have a culture problem? And if so, what would you do to change it?
So as a person that has a police department that has been overseeing a police department for 12 years, I understand what it means when an officer should go find another position. Also, I understand as a person that was on the board of Kentucky Law Enforcement Council who took away the certification of police officers, I understand what it means when a police officer should not move from one agency to another because of a problem. And it's interesting because I've said this before, and I talked about that was the one that actually took certification from the Explorer program. And it's sad for me to think that people don't still remember the Explorer program and the situation that happened in our community, to where that should never happen again. But when we start talking about inwardness of the police department, this is something that should not be tolerated. And I have said many times that Rick Sanders will be coming with me, and the two of us will make sure that the culture is changed to where the police officers are both working with the community and working for the community. And the change will be day one, because we have to do this to where the community are working with the police, and the police are not doing things that shouldn't be. We realize there's some officers that may not be there, but I'm going to tell you, 99% of the officers put on the uniform every day and there to protect us and help us. We should not mix the social worker with the police officer. Social workers have special skills, they have degrees, they have training. As you know, in your nonprofits, these social workers are people that are special people. They're not police officers. Police officers aren't social workers. We should make sure, whoops, I didn't see the red dot again. Sorry, Rachel.
That's okay. Stephen, one question I just wanted to follow up with that, and it doesn't even have to be a full 30 seconds, but I wanted a yes or no, because at the very beginning we said, do you think LMPD has a culture problem? And I'm not sure I heard a direct answer on either of those from you. Is it a simple yes and no? And can you each answer that with a yes or no? Is that even possible? Mr. Deere,
Believe that
Framework.
I believe there's definitely room for improvement in LMPD's culture. I believe there is room for improvement throughout all of city government's culture.
Bill Deere?
Rachel, I would say this is probably one category that Craig and I believe in the same way, that through the whole government, we need to make sure that the DE&I and the representation all the way around is the best of the best. And we review it. And so it's not a yes and no. It's a matter of a work in progress. We all know no matter where we work, that has to be done.
All right. Thank you both for that. I appreciate it. Want to turn our attention now to Metro Corrections and the ongoing crisis. 12 inmates dying in the jail since November of 2021. You both have said you don't want to spend taxpayer dollars to build a new facility. Give me the first thing you would do, though, if elected, to help create a safer environment in the jail for inmates. Bill Deere, 90 seconds.
Well, the interesting thing is what I said a couple of weeks ago is something that's came out in the report yesterday by Dave Byer on the review of the jail. I said our jail system right now, for those who have ever seen the jail, is a corridor. And at the end of the corridor is our corrections officers. When you have corrections officers at the end, they can't see what's going on. The new jail should have a centerpiece where the correction officers is with the jail cells around them so they can review everything that's going on, similar to a nurse's station at a hospital. This is a remodeling that is the new way of doing the jail system. So the other part of that is the correction officers are, again, as short as the police are and as dispatch are. So we have to do a new way of getting corrections officers to come to work. One of the simple things I've talked to them about is they should have the ability to be lateral transfers into LMPD so they can see that their job in a later date, they can move into other positions. They are not allowed to do that. What better way to hire somebody that uses non-lethal to go into LMPD and you already review the employee and you know what they're like. The employees that need to come so we can do more programs to help those people that need help in our jails. We have they are the #1 detox center in the state is in our jail system. We have to have a method where when they leave the jail during a certain time that we have the nonprofits that are there to help them when they leave. We don't have that set up now, and it should be set up to help those people that are going halfway through in detox and don't know what to do, and they go over and overdose on the next day.
All right, Craig Greenberg, same question. The first thing you would do if elected to help create a safer environment in Metro Corrections.
Thanks, Rachel. I started working on this well over a year ago when working with member corrections officials, mental health advocates, criminal justice reform advocates, medical professionals. We called a community corrections crisis summit because we saw this coming. We need to do more. We can and must. One thing I just want to quickly say before I talk about some of the solutions is here is one challenge we're facing as a community. Right now in jail, over 50% of the individuals who are incarcerated are there on bail of less than $1,000, most on nonviolent crimes. Yet over half, 50% of our murders are going unsolved. Something's wrong with that. We need to address that and really focus our issue on reducing violent crime. Here are some things that we can and must do to improve the conditions in our jail and also to address our improved public safety. First, we need to address recidivism and end the cycle of violence for those familiar faces who are incarcerated by providing more enrichment programs while folks are incarcerated, educational programs, and also addiction treatment. There are so many people who are in jail right now that are suffering from addiction, and we can and must support them with that, just like we do other medical conditions. We must do a better job of stopping drugs from getting in the jail. That is something that we can and must do. And while some steps may have been taken here recently, we must do more. And finally, we must recruit and retain corrections officers so that we have a full staff of individuals to ensure that they have safe and healthy work environments and that we can also keep those who are incarcerated protected and safe as well while they are incarcerated.
One other question on this topic. Are you in favor of cash bail reform? Why or why not? And what cases would receive top priority for you? Craig Greenberg, we'll start with you, 90 seconds.
I do believe in cash bail reform as it relates to nonviolent crimes. I think there is a big difference between individuals who are arrested for violent crimes, such as attempted murder, versus those who are arrested for nonviolent crimes. We cannot and should not have individuals who are locked up in our jail simply because they are poor, if they have committed a nonviolent crime. So that, to me, is the distinction as we address bail reform throughout the state, is the difference between violent and nonviolent offenses.
Bill Duriff, same question.
So I would say first start is we got to stop putting people in jail that shouldn't be there. From the people on this call, they understand what that means. The addicted and the people with behavioral problems, we should get them help, not throw them in jail. But the other part is our bail has been reformed, and I think it was 1986. Don't quote me on that. And we've never touched it since then. So yes, we need a mayor that understands how to work Frankfurt to get the new bail system working for us that was beneficial. But the people that should be in jail should be, but the people that should not be there should have the advantage of being able to get out until their day in court is there. So I would say that's a threefold. One, we should stop putting people in jail that should not be there. Two, we should be, somebody might.
You good?
One, we should not put people in jail that should not be there, the addicted with a behavioral problem. Two, we should go to Frankfurt and work on redoing the bail system that we have that hasn't been done since 1986.
All right. Thank you both. Stephen?
Thank you. With broad bipartisan support for the recent allocation of more than $14 million toward the physical infrastructure of our library buildings, the Metro Council just reaffirmed their confidence in the Louisville Free Public Library as a crucial part of the equation in addressing critical issues in our community. Do you commit to ensuring our library system has the annual operational support it needs to play a role in addressing core challenges that we face? Bill Duriff, 90 seconds.
So as a person that the Friends of the Library say I go to more of their political functions than anybody else over the years, I very much support them. And as a mayor who provides the library building and everything that goes with it for free to the library, I would say I'm very much pro-library. The one thing we found out when we did the travels around to all the different libraries is they provide a lot of services that we shouldn't be duplicating other places. They provide the computers, they provide the areas for people to learn. They even have a coffee shop in there. So I mean, all the things the new libraries have, we need to go back and look at some of the older libraries to refurbish them in areas of town that do not have the brand new library. So many times we just say they have a library, but it hasn't been touched for years. And you're almost embarrassed when you walk into that library. So I would commit that the library system is alive and well, and we need to improve it in areas that have not been modernized. And we need to fund it for the future because they have things, and why repeat it someplace else that is not needed?
Just to very quick follow-up there, Bill. Are you talking about the replicating the regional library model in more places?
I'm talking about the libraries that we have in other parts of town that are very dated and need a lot of work, anywhere from heating and air conditioning to the whole modernization of it. Need help. So we should take what we have and make it. We don't have to build brand new buildings, but we have to take what we have and take care of it. And actually, since it's been so not taken care of, that the infrastructure of them is going to need a lot more work and a lot more help than it ever has been before.
Thank you. Craig Greenberg, same question.
Well, I'll go in reverse order there and start where you just left. So for example, the Parkland Library in the Parkland neighborhood in West Louisville, that's a great example. The city has just allocated some art money. Other Metro Council members have found some additional funds, and that's a beautiful building in an area town that's been neglected for our entire lifetime, that I'm very excited about that property reopening. So investing in facilities in West Louisville, in other, in particular, low-income communities, in Black communities that have been overlooked for our entire community, that is where we should be focusing on these investments in libraries, and I would also add parks to that as well. But as I talk to folks who are involved in the library, that either work at the library or that are on Friends of the Library board, we must invest in operations as well, because buildings are great, but we need to ensure that they have the programs for people in our community, adults and kids alike. To me, libraries and parks are a key part of the public safety solution in our city as well as improving education, something that I'm very passionate about. And I believe the city can and should do a better job of being a part of improving education throughout the city. Two other quick things on libraries. First, right now we only have one bookmobile that is dilapidated. Another one is on order. I would love to have more bookmobiles as well so that we can quickly get into parts of towns for events and festivals and better serve kids in particular by bringing the library to them and giving more kids the opportunity to read and programming. And second of all, we must ensure the safety of library personnel. AFSCME, the organized labor union that I'm proud to be endorsed by that represents library workers, has had some concerns about library employee safety. We must do a better job of protecting our Metro employees.
Want to turn our attention now to homelessness and affordable housing. Homelessness, as we all know, is an increasing problem really all around the country and certainly in Louisville as well. How do you plan to address it? Craig Greenberg, 90 seconds.
So this is another area where nonprofits will 100% play a very significant role in addressing this crisis. Many months ago, we convened a meeting at the Salvation Army with about 10 organizations that serve the homeless community, where I simply listened to the challenges that those hardworking men and women in our community with these organizations are doing to serve our homeless community and what we should do to improve the way that we address our homeless crisis. And what I heard is just like the city of Houston that has a housing first model, we need more transitional housing units so that we can bring some of our homeless population indoor and give them a safe place to live while they are having the opportunity to get a new place on life. However, that needs to be combined with services that they need as well, particularly mental health services and more mental health resources, and also addiction treatment. Pair those all together in several locations around our community to better serve the homeless population, and also have more services. Ensure that they're signed up for government programs they're eligible for, like Medicaid. Ensure that we help them get their government IDs so that they can access programs. Help them get into job training if they're ready for that. These are all things that we can and should do to support our homeless community, and also to ensure that those of us who are not homeless feel safe, and that our streets are clean and safe for everyone as well. To me, this is the way we approach this situation, because it's not just a downtown challenge. It's not just in any one part of the community. It's all over the whole community.
Bill Deeriff, you on homelessness, please.
So as a sitting mayor, I deal with this many times, whether it's in Jeffersontown or across the community, because we realize, and I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, because you all deal with this on a daily basis, just like I do, if even more so, because you are countywide. And we realize that many people don't think of homelessness as multiple. They think of it as just one type of person. When we deal with the homeless, we realize there's the addicted that are out on the streets doing drugs, and they need the help. That's where our Angel program comes in, and we facilitate that to bring them to you all, so you all can do what you do the best. We have the victims advocate that it is out there that happens to be helping the wife that is abused and takes the kids and throws them in the car and is living on the street. And they need the help. They need the victims advocate to lead them through the court and lead them to you all, so you all can help them to show that this is not the way of living a life. We have the veterans that is very much dear to my heart, that have fought for our country and our freedom and can't adjust to come back. And their suicide rate is so high that they're on the street that we have to help them very fast because they may not be there. We have people like USA Cares or other organizations that find housing, find jobs, and change the behavioral adjustment they have when they come back. We have the people that have just lost their job because people are coming to our community. And again, I'm telling you all this, that you all know they've raised the rent so high that they can't afford it. So they're homeless at this point in time. And that should never happen. We should stop that on day one to make sure that the people are not being evicted just because somebody decided to raise their rent and kick them out. We have the area ministries across our whole community. We have J-Town in our area, but they're across our whole community to help those families, to help them pay the rent, to pay the utilities, and get food and get jobs. So, I mean, those are just a few of the situations.
Red dot, it appeared, Mayor Deeriff, I didn't know if you saw that.
What's that?
Your red dot, it appeared. I was trying to wrap you up. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't see Marv. I'm looking at Marv up here and I didn't see a red dot. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Rachel, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to go on to the second question of that. On the heels of that question is a critical shortage of affordable housing. The figure here we hear most often is 31,000 units shy in Louisville. Can we fix that problem? And where do we start? Bill Dourif, 90 seconds.
So the first thing I've always said that we have a one-time chance with the American Rescue Plan. Louisville got 388 million. I always wanted to put 100 million of it into affordable housing. And affordable housing can be multiple ways, but many times we think affordable housing as an apartment complex. That should be a step to ownership. I want to see us become more and more ownership driven so that people can get generational wealth. And when we start talking about ownership, it could be in an area where they live. And Louisville is very bad about houses that need work, getting them through the system and where people can work on them. And people who work on them should be local people, not somebody that's nationally that wants to refurbish them and charge an astronomical rent. It should be monies that is helping the people own the house and that they will get generational wealth. But the one thing we don't think about many times is when the person gets the house and they have the marginal amount of dollars to afford to pay for the house, when something happens, what do they do? And I would believe that we need to also incorporate an insurance policy with a local group of people that really care, like a nonprofit. So if something happens in that house where it's a water heater, a roof leak, or anything that may happen, that this insurance policy through a nonprofit would go in and help fix it. Because if you didn't, what would happen is they would have to go to a pay here lender and they would lose the house eventually. I don't want to see the person not be homeless in 5 years from now. I want them to have that house where they can pass it on to the next generation. I saw it this time, Rachel.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Craig Greenberg.
On the day I announced my campaign, I committed to a bold goal. Let's build 15,000 new affordable housing units during my first term as mayor towards that goal, to make bold steps to transform Louisville and give more people in Louisville the opportunity to have the key, safe foundation for their family, for their future. And that's through affordable housing. I believe that affordable housing should be across our entire city in all 26 Metro Council districts. It shouldn't just be confined to 1 or 2 areas of town. Affordable housing needs to be near improved public transportation routes, a subject we have not yet talked about. It's an area that needs a lot of improvement in our city. Affordable housing should be near good paying career path jobs, should be near services that are available easily to communities, truly parts of neighborhoods. And yes, we must also focus on home ownership, not just rental. Let's go into lower income neighborhoods throughout our city and focus on the thousands of vacant and abandoned lots and work to get those lots into people's hands that can own homes so that they can create generational wealth for their family, so that the neighborhoods will become safer, that they'll become cleaner, and they'll become greener. And when we're talking about affordable housing, that's critically important, but safety and quality is also important. And so when we see negligent landlords, particularly those negligent landlords from out of state that are owning 1,300 units in West End of Louisville, we must ensure that those tenants have safe and high quality standards as well. And if we need to use our code enforcement to ensure that, we will. And as a city, we need to make sure that our units of affordable housing also live up to the standards. Unfortunately, right now, they're not.
Thank you. Let's move to immigration. What do you plan on doing to better meet the increasing needs of immigrants and refugees here in Louisville? Craig Greenberg, 90 seconds.
Sure. This is an area that actually my wife, Rachel, has been very involved with for nearly 20 years. Rachel is a former English as a second language teacher at Wheatley Elementary School, a JCPS elementary school in the California neighborhood, and has been involved with the New American community since that time. She served, and going back to the first question, she served on the board of Jewish Family and Career Services and was very involved in this area, even chairing the Mosaic Awards dinner that is recognizing new Americans. So my family has been working with new American families for a long period of time. Through organizations like JFCS, through Catholic Charities, through Kentucky Refugee Ministries, through La Casita, and other organizations, we must ensure that new Americans have the services they need to thrive and flourish here, whether it's opening a business, whether it's getting legal services to help with an immigration issue, whether it's ensuring that their kids are enrolled in school and that they then have the right services that they need in the school, or whether it's just acclimating to a new country that they have moved to. We can and should and must do more through our city and continue to support these organizations that are supporting our new American community. Because to me, a vibrant city is one that has a growing and diverse community of new Americans. So we should be proud of our inclusivity here in Louisville, and having a strong new American community is a big part of that. Some of our fastest growing populations are new American communities. And as mayor, I look forward to working with Americana and the other organizations I've named and many others across the city to ensure that stays the case for Louisville.
Bill Deeriff, 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well, it seems very simple. What we did this summer, we started a culture fest. And the culture fest is to have everybody from our area realize how many different cultures we have. We had food, we had dance, we had clothing. We had booths where people could talk to different cultures to see what was going on. That is a first step. But when the people actually come from another culture to here, they have a different government system. They have a different policing system. And we have to realize that that is something that we have to work with them to say, this is how it works here, and make it not bureaucratic. If talking to the different immigrants, they have a hard time going through our system to do anything. So I appreciate the people that we work with right now as a city. We work with Catholic Charities, with the Kentucky Refugee, La Scatina, and Americana Center. We realize the need for those people to have those centers, the nonprofits, to work with them. But from talking to the different centers, the one thing is the time it takes to get here to get a job is horrendous. We need to be able, as a Metro, to say that time frame should be shortened. We have to be able to have the lawyers that are there to be able to help the people, to take them through the system, to make them to where they can have housing, they can have jobs, and they can be a part of our community all the time. Many people don't realize, and probably you all do, that the second largest Cuban population is here. And when the law changed, they could come here, but they couldn't get citizenship. This is ridiculous, that the fact that they have the ability to come here, but can't transfer to citizenship.
All right, we have two more questions before your closing statements. We're getting good questions in the chat. Just for our audience, we will make sure that we forward those questions to both of our mayoral candidates and try to get you those answers. And Ann Coffey can probably forward those to you. I just don't want anyone in the audience to think that we're not seeing, but many of the questions we're asking tonight were submitted ahead of time by nonprofits. Now to the issue of food insecurity. Food banks are seeing a huge increase in demand. How would you ensure food access and security to communities that are experiencing those high volumes of insecurities? Bill Deeriff, we'll start with you.
Well, the one simple answer is just say we're going to build brick and mortar, but that takes time. So the Dare to Care has a situation, say for a homeless, they have a freeze-dried method where a homeless person can get a whole week's worth of food they carry in their backpack, and they could go into a gas station and heat the water and actually have nutritious food. But another system is what we do now, that us who have a phone. The digital connectivity is many times you can do from your phone to order the food that you need, and it can be delivered to your house. We have to do that in areas that are unsecure, and that could be done right away, where that you can order from a Kroger's or a Ollie or a Value Market, where they can deliver to you. But there's also people that are out here that are providing fresh food, fresh fruit, and fresh food, that they come down to the West End and different neighborhoods, and the people should know about that. They should be supplied with that. The other thing would be to build the grocery stores in the future. But the one thing that we also found out that is very hard, that is being zoned out, is the gardens. It's very hard for people in other parts of the community that I'm not in, that have to have a garden, or don't have to have a garden, but can't have a garden in their neighborhood because the zoning won't let them. We need to look at our zoning to where people can actually have fresh produce because they want to grow it themselves. There's been gardens that have been kicked out and rezoned to where they won't let them do it. So in the future, what we have to look at, there's many topics in order to bring the fresh food and the food to the people in the neighborhoods.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Deeriff. And Craig Greenberg?
To me, this is not a difficult solution. It's just a question of priority and making something happen. This is why we don't need any more studies in our city. We all know what the challenges are. And Rachel, you've identified one, and we know what the solution is. The solution is more grocery stores in local neighborhoods, particularly low-income communities that are food deserts and have been overlooked for our entire lifetime. This has not been a priority of the city. It will be under my administration. I'm a proud personal supporter of Louisville Community Grocery that recently received a $3.5 million grant from the city, is partnering with other organizations and foundations around the town, and has started work on a new grocery store in Smoketown. That is great for that neighborhood. We must do more. We have to do more of these in lower income communities, particularly in the 9 neighborhoods of West Louisville, to ensure that they have access to safe, affordable, and healthy food. This is a key part. We have not talked much about our community's health. We must have a safer city, but also a healthier city. And this is one way to make it happen, is through local grocery stores. There are plenty of buildings out there already that we could easily work with national or local chains or local organizations to ensure we get these up and running. We also should continue to support local and regional farmers through CSAs and supply chains. And yes, definitely work with Dare to Care, who's doing amazing things to feed those. And finally, I do want to talk about what are called edible parks, an amazing new concept in certain cities that we can and should bring to Louisville as part of our park program. But I'm out of time.
To close tonight, I want to ask a question about climate change. Are you committed to maintaining Louisville's pledge to reduce greenhouse gas emissions with the ultimate goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050? Craig Greenberg, 90 seconds.
Yes, we must focus on more renewable energy for the city government, for residential folks, and also for commercial activities as well. One great way to do that is solar, and the city has rolled out a new program called Solar Louisville that we should be expanding, that we should be encouraging others to participate in for their homes and businesses. We need to continue to encourage LG&E to focus on renewables, but that is part of the solution. We also must improve our public transportation, and we must have an approach to development that is really focused on walkable, bikeable, healthy neighborhoods where people can live, can walk to schools, they can walk to their jobs, they can work to services that they need, work to retail stores and restaurants as well. We also need to focus on our waterways, something that we haven't talked about yet tonight. Between the Ohio River, between Beargrass Creek, between Floyd's Fork, we should aspire to have water that is clean enough to swim in, clean enough to fish in, and clean enough to even drink in. These might be lofty goals, but we should aspire to these lofty goals to make them realities and work together towards that, to clean up the water, to get rid of the PFAS that are these forever chemicals. We need to work with our businesses that are in the community that are emitting air quality, things into the atmosphere that are not well, and ensure our air pollution control district is on top of that. And finally, right now, if you go into the west end of Louisville, as I am nearly every day, a few days ago, I got out of my car, and candidly, it smelled like something I'm not going to say on this large of a Zoom call, but you know what I mean. We must do more to ensure that lower income parts of our city are not suffering from environmental injustices. We need to ensure that all of Louisville is healthy and has great air quality.
Bill Dearth.
When we start looking about what we're going to do in the future, we should be doing it right now. The heat island is something many times we say, well, let's plant more trees in the east end. But we should be looking in the west end because that's where one of the big heat islands is. And we should be planting trees around the houses there and around the communities there, because it does shelter and causes the heat to be less, but it increases the values in that property. So that the tree canopy is something that very much should be pushed all the way around this community, but especially in the communities where the heat island is. When we start talking about transportation and saving fossil fuel with that way, I've done 2 things as mayor. One, being the chairman of the Kentucky KIPTA and being part of the board. If y'all may be familiar with the Ticket to Ride program that was made to where if you were 20 miles out, you got a van and you could put 8 to 10 people in the van. You could transport the people to Toyota. I have done that to where now you can do that locally. So a group of people from PRP that want to work downtown, they can get a van and they could commute in the van downtown. So rather than take a big TARC bus down, we have a van that would come down, and it's considered a TARC bus. Whether if it's in the West End and they want to come to work J-Town, we could do the same thing. But the other thing we've done in our city is we put charging stations around before charging stations were popular. So, I mean, it's a cool thing to say running for election, but we've already done this. We did these projects many years ago when it wasn't popular, but was needed to look to the future of how we're going to do it. And That red dot gets me every time, Rachel.
We apologize for that red dot. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. We want to give you both closing statements, but because we're running out of time, we're going to cut those down to 30 each, if you all are okay with that. So you'll only get a red dot to tell you when your time is up. So I'm sorry, the red dot will haunt you one more time on your closing statements. So 30 seconds to wrap things up for you, Craig Greenberg.
We've talked a lot of things that reflect our values as a city here tonight. Let me close really quickly with one other of my values that is critically important to the future of Louisville, and that is women's reproductive rights. I am opposed to Amendment 2. I'm opposed to the extreme Kentucky ban, and my values say that as mayor, we should not use our police force to arrest women, girls, or doctors that are accused of violating this extreme ban on abortion that provides no exceptions for rape or incest. To me, that is a key part of being an inclusive city, about being a prosperous city, and a city that can thrive as we move forward in the future.
Bill Deere, your closing statements.
So first, I would like for everybody on the call that's working in a nonprofit to say thank you, because you're putting your time and effort many times for free or for not the same money you could make if you went into the other world. So I very much compliment you for your passion, because of you, our community is better. And so as we look to the future, it's nice to look at a mayor who is a mayor that has a proven track record with the different organizations that are on here. So when you say, what do we look like in the future? We need to let you all prosper, because you all have the passion and the thought process and the education, and we need to get government out of the way. We need to get government helping you, but not running you. So as we look, you flicked that on and turned it right back off. Does that mean I get to keep talking, Marv? There you go.
Thank you so much, Bill Deere. And Stephen, your final comments with Ann, right?
Absolutely. Election day is November 8th. And now we'd like to bring in Ann Coffey for her closing words. Ann is the CEO at the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, and we thank her for her dedication to making tonight happen and all she does to advocate on behalf of nonprofits. Ann. You are on
You're
mute.
on mute, Ann.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to say the thanks. I first want to say thanks to Rachel from the Frazier History Museum and Stephen from Louisville Public Media, Ashley Parrot, who is vice chair of the CNPE board, and of course the CNPE team. And I have to give a shout out to the members of the board of directors and our bold board chair, Kristen Boone. They make all this possible. So up next, we'll be keeping everyone posted on ways that we can work with the new administration. I know a lot of you in your individual organizations are doing that, but we are actively involved in this and very excited about the conversations we've had with both of these candidates. And then we'll also be releasing our first State of the Nonprofit Sector report since 2016. So that's long overdue, and this will be a comprehensive report on our sector's economic impact and obviously the social impact and more. So you'll be hearing about that hopefully more in early November. Thank you to our CNPE members. Couldn't do it without you, and everybody who attended this evening. It's been a great showing. A double thanks again to the candidates and their staff who've been wonderful. We really appreciate you taking the time. So we hope to see you again soon. Take care of yourself and of course each other.